Alright, top 5 budget and free-to-play decks of the format. First off, we have Yosenju, a deck that just recently got some support, some new skills, some new cards with the Arc 5 world. This deck is really budget because everything comes out of one mini box, right? Your entire core of the engine pretty much comes out of this one mini box. You go through it 3 times, boom, you got this deck complete, and you'll have Ritual Beast complete as well. Both of those decks are in the exact same mini box. They're both fairly budget as a result. And as I mentioned, this one did get some support recently, but they're free-to-play cards. They're all level up rewards, the Pendulum monsters. So if you do get this deck, you can also go for a second version of this deck as well, the Pendulum version, which isn't quite as good, but it's still really fun, and it's a solid deck also. If you don't have tankies, it's okay because, I mean, you still want to get them not just for this deck, but for other decks as well. But it may not be the highest priority, and it's okay, though, because we have our skill, which can help you with searching now. So you have this this continuous spell card that whenever you get 3 counters on it, you can remove them to search your deck for a Senju monster. Well, your skill is going to basically let you put free counters on this card. So you're going to be able to search your deck for your Senju monsters anyways, even without tanky. So it definitely helps make up if you're missing this card. Either way, even if you are, you can just go through one mini box a couple times to get the tankies again. You might need them for other decks also, or you will if you decide to go build some of the other ones that are on this list. You'll hint is what else might be on here. But Yosenjus are a great deck. Again, one that just recently got support. And if you do go through the mini box to get this deck, you're going to also be able to build the Pendulum version of this deck. So pretty nice to be able to build some of the new Arc 5 decks. Next up, we got Triamid. This is another budget deck. Everything comes out of one mini box. You don't really need too many things besides that. Another thing I didn't mention about the last deck, I'll mention about this one and the last one, is that you don't need a lot of extra deck cards either, right? Like, you don't need a ton of extra deck cards for your Senju. They don't really use them too much. And the same thing with Triamids. I mean, they're nice to have. You go into them occasionally, but you're going to win the majority of your duels without needing to use your extra deck. So with Triamid, it's another nice thing you don't have to invest. Gorgonic Guardian is great to have, but again, don't need it. And everything in here comes out of one mini box. The only exception to that is the Sphinx, as well as, you know, some like the generic back row, like the Triamid trap, or excuse me, the Triamid trap hole, the Treacherous trap hole. But you can replace that with other back row cards. You don't need to have Treacherous in here. Triamid Pulse is a free-to-play card off the card trader, I believe. And again, Triamid Sphinx does not come out of that box. It does come out of a separate box, but you only need one copy. You only need to go get one Triamid Sphinx. You don't need to go get 2 or 3 copies of it. So it helps keep this deck really budget and the overall gem cost very low. Another great deck, I mentioned it earlier, Ritual Beast. This one also comes out of that same mini box that the Yosenjus come out of. It's why it's such a great box to invest into, because you're not just going to get 1 but 2 solid decks that you can use at a competitive level, get the king of games with, hell, even do well in tournaments with. And Ritual Beasts are one of those decks that always do really good whenever we have a new format. Whenever there's a big ban list, people like to go back to Ritual Beast. They always have some decent matchups in the metagame. Always are a threat here and there. And what's great about this deck is that it's very versatile, right? Like, you don't need to run these exact spells and back row cards. You don't need to have Vortex or Double Summon. You can run other just generic back row instead. And I mentioned the extra deck for the last 2 decks. This one's even better because all of your extra deck cards are mostly just the fusion monsters that come out of that same mini box. So you don't need to go get a whole bunch of different XYZ monsters. You can mostly just use what you have out of that one mini box. Makes this deck super affordable. And yeah, it's a solid deck. It is a little bit more complex. It's not as easy to pick up and learn. You do really have to learn the combos a lot more with this deck. It's much more difficult to pilot than some of the other decks on this list or some of the other decks in the meta. But if you can learn how to do so, Ritual Beasts are a solid deck to always have at your disposal. Next up, we got Lunalight, this deck that won the MCS. This is actually still a pretty good deck in the metagame. It has some great matchups. Saber Dancer is extremely difficult for certain decks to get rid of. Decks like Harpies really lose this deck the majority of the time. Also, Water XYZ loses to the deck. Any deck that can't remove monsters without non-targeting removal is really going to struggle against Lunalights. Even Blue Eyes can struggle against Lunalights if they have answers to the fusion monster. So this deck is definitely still a threat. Lunalights, you can also get it very cheap because it's all coming out of one main box, right? Like, all the Lunalights, you go through that main box like 1.5 times or 2 times, and you pretty much got all the Lunalights completed, and you're gonna be able to put together pretty much a pure Lightsworn deck completed as well, which is another solid deck to have that can get you up to King of Games or at least to Legend level very easily. It can help level you up there and get you some some wins in terms of like grinding like the auto duels against the AI and stuff. So you're gonna have a couple great decks that you're gonna be able to get out of this box, and even get some pieces if later on you decide to build Dragoonity or Gladiator Beast. So it's a good box to go into. You're gonna get a number of different things out of there. Lunalights are just another great deck to have, and yeah, we see Tanky in here. It's another reason why you might want to go get those Tankies, because they are so effective and so useful in a number of different decks. But yeah, Lunalight's another great budget deck. All the hand traps, you don't need to run Sphere Karibo either. You can run normal Karibo, Temperance. You can get free to play hand traps as well. The extra deck is also pretty cheap because most of it is just the fusion monsters, which comes out of that same box. So you do need to get a couple XYZ monsters, but you don't even use them that much, so you really don't need to go digging for a whole bunch of different XYZ monsters. Papyropolis is pretty cheap to get, so this deck is very affordable, it's very budget, and still extremely effective. It's great in the metagame right now. Anytime you got a deck like Harpies that can't get rid of Saber Dancer easily, this deck is going to be useful in the meta, and yeah, chance you could even win tournaments with this thing. And next up, we have Fire Kings. So this deck is, don't be alarmed by the gem cost if you see it at the top corner of the deck. This player was, this is a tournament deck actually. The player was side decking Alistair and the Invoker engine. So the gem cost for this deck is extremely low when you consider the fact that most of this comes out of the structure deck. In fact, this is just 2 structure decks. So one purchased, one off of gems. You can get this for $4 or $5 if you get the sale. And you can have this deck put together. The hand traps are pretty much all free to play. Veil and Kite Roid are all free to play. You can get other things to replace the Sphere Karibo with. So the only thing that comes out of a box is the Arvada. You do need to go get 3 copies of that. It's extremely powerful. It's out of a mini box though, and I believe it's the same mini box that has Tanky in it. So if you wanted to build a deck with Tanky, you know, you're gonna have to go through that same box anyway. So, and also you can run Tanky in this deck too. So there's actually 3 decks on this list that you need that card for. So yeah, it's tough given that you want to go for your staple cards first. You know, you want to get your Canadias and your Floodgate Trap Holes, your Cosmics or MSTs. But once you do it, Tanky's not a bad card to think about because so many of these decks are going to utilize it. But anyways, guys, these are the top 5 budget free-to-play decks of the format right now. It's going to be interesting to see how this format develops as more Arc 5 and Pendulum decks come out. How many of them will join these ranks? We'll see if we need to do this list again here in a couple months. We'll see how much the metagame changes. I didn't include Melodius on this list yet because I'm not sure which versions of Melodius are best yet. It's obviously been doing really well in tournaments. I just wanted to make note of that because some people are in the comments going to be like, where's Melodius? But yeah, no, Melodius is a great deck right now, but it might be that the best ways to play the deck require to have a lot of different like generic backer cards. So you need Skill Prisoners, you need Treacherous, you need Necrofusion. So if it comes out that you need the best way to play the deck is going to require all these staple cards, it's a little bit more expensive perhaps than some of the other decks on this list. But I think we're still gonna need another week or 2 to figure out what the most ideal way to play Melodius is. Either way, Melodius is one of like the top 2 decks right now. It may even be the best deck of the format. It's right up there with Harpies, very close to it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this meta continues to develop and how that deck continues to settle into the existing metagame. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. It helps out the video quite a bit. And thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a great rest of the day.